While we had managed to break the Kumo/Iwa defensive line out in the field, trying to take their base that was on the other side of an incredibly deep gorge, one that went along for miles and we couldn't walk down without leaving ourselves vulnerable, was an incredibly daunting task. But, for the time being we celebrated our small victory with some smiles and back-clapping as we dug ourselves in across from the base, out of range of any attacks they could launch from safety within the base. I let out a groan of relief as I sagged to the ground between my brother and Chika-chan, the Yamanaka herself letting out a sigh of relief of her own as we began pulling out our rations. "You all did good today," Hisai-sensei said across from us, slowly nudging a small fire to life to warm us as the sun began to drop into the horizon. "Rest up, I'm afraid it won't be getting any easier from this point on." The three of us nodded in understanding as I began to lean into my brother, the older Uchiha accepting it as he placed an arm around my shoulder comfortingly. "Thank you for showing up," I whispered quietly to him. "Of course," he replied as he looked down to me, his onyx-colored eyes warm. "You're my precious little sister, I'll always be there to back you up." I couldn't help the smile that came onto my face as I enjoyed the warmth of his body. "That technique you used, how did you do it?" I questioned in confusion. I couldn't even track your movements." My brother hummed a bit in response, looking over to Chika-chan and Aoi-kun, both of whom were now fast asleep, and turned his gaze to Hisai-sensei, who got the message my brother seemed to send him and excused himself. "Because technically, I'm not really moving, in the conventional sense anyways," he replied after a few moments of thought. "I'm teleporting within my visual range, which includes reflections. Well, that's the power my left eye was granted, my right eye allows me to teleport others within my visual range." Damn, that's... wow. I couldn't help but stare at my brother in shock at the revelation of the abilities of the Manjikyu Sharingan. There were so many goddamn different ways it could be used. "I know, it was rather confusing when I first started using it, but I got the hang of it eventually," he admitted. "When I got the Manjikyu, I was given instinctual knowledge on what it can do, just not how to apply it to my way of fighting," he shrugged again. "Nothing that training can't fix, so, what about your power?" I paused for a moment as I tried to think of what to say. "Do you remember that game we played together before you were promoted to jonin?" I questioned, pulling the memories of my 5-year-old self up. "The RPG one where you could build your character how you wanted?" At his nod I swallowed tightly. "Well, somehow I have powers like that," I said finally, "actually. Invite Sakaki Uchiha to party." My brother raised an eyebrow at my unusual phrase before a screen suddenly popped up before him. "Yuriko Uchiha has invited you to her party. Accept? Y/N. This is not a genjutsu," he commented idly as he reached up and pressed the Y to accept the invite. "Now what?" "Say status," I told him, prompting him to do so and blink again as a new window popped up. "Name, Sakaki Uchiha level, 53 EXP, 13, 587/28, 500 age, 21 gender, male title, Elite Jonin, plus 50% to all stats, plus 25% to all Rio rewards for completed missions, stats HP, 4825 CP, 17,200 STR, 75, 112, INT, 125, 187, DX, 108, 162, BIT, 63, 94, WS, 116, 174, LUK, 20, 30, Rio, 12,986,631. Holy crap, Big Brother is loaded. Wow, so you somehow have an ability that will allow you to basically quantify all of your stats into numbers, he questioned with an amazed look. Not just that, so long as I meet the requirements I can instantly learn a jutsu from a scroll, and I get things whenever I defeat someone, I replied as I finally started going through the assorted pop-ups that appeared during the battle. Thank God they stack on top of one another and go to the very edge of my vision when I'm busy. My brother looked over and blinked as he suddenly realized that there were a number of pop-ups in front of me. Each time I do something or beat someone, I gain experience. Whether it's the technique I'm practicing or just simply doing push-ups, it all accumulates to something, whether it's a level up or a bonus stat point. I'm pretty sure I was rambling at this point, but my brother patiently sat there and listened to me as I rambled on. Like today, with everything that happened, my power auto-looted 500 standard shuriken, 100 standard kunai, numerous other odds and end, 5 jutsu scrolls and about 25,000 in Rio. That is a terrifying ability, he said finally. And what happens when you level up? Well, For techniques its effect increases, it's basically a milestone for my mastery over the jutsu, but in general, I grow stronger as I gain 5 points to put into any stat I want, along with a bonus stat to my WIS and DX and plus 50 to my chakra pool because of my Uchiha heritage. The potential for this ability is staggering, my brother said after several seconds of silence. So, how much experience did you get today? Let's see. 25 individuals defeated, 8 shinobi, 17 daimyo samurai. I mumbled under my breath as I went through the different pop-ups adding together all the experience. 20,625 EXP altogether, or 3 level ups. Status, dot. Name, Yuriko level, 16 EXP, 1952/9000 age, 7 gender, female title, jonin, plus 25% EXP until level 25, stats HP, 625 CP, 1600 STR, 25, 27, INT, 40 DX, 34, 37, VIT, 25 WS, 40 LUK, 15 Rio, 102,652 stat points, 15. I let my brother watch over my shoulder as I began to input my stat points, answering his occasional question about some of the minor things about my gamer powers as I did so. Name, Yuriko level, 16 EXP, 1952/9000 age, 7 gender, female title, jonin, plus 25% EXP until level 25, stats HP, 900 CP, 1902 STR, 30, 33, INT, 43 DX, 34, 37, VA, 30 WS, 42 LUK, 15 Rio, 102,652. So, you are looking at increasing your max chakra pool then as a priority, he questioned me as he looked over my stats. Yeah, well, as a medic I need every bit of chakra I can get, especially since I'm using jutsus like chakra scalpel and fire release, chakra flow, I explained, feeling my cheeks heat up as I tried to defend my choices. I'm trying to not let my STR and VIT fall behind, and I do extra physical training in them for bonus points. My brother nodded approvingly in response. A good decision, he applauded me with a nod. I can understand why you kept this hidden. If it had gotten out, there would definitely be a lot of contention over your power, so, we will help you keep it a secret. I let out a small sigh of relief as I relaxed further into him as my eyes began to droop. Thank you, I whispered in response, getting a chuckle and a pat on the back in response. Get some sleep, Squirt, he advised me. I'll keep watch. I tried to say something, anything to him, only for an unintelligible murmur to escape my lips as I slumped further into him, settling into deep, dreamless sleep. It wasn't until 3 days later, that we made our first attempt on taking the base. It wasn't anything serious, a probing attack to test the defenses that resulted in 12 wounded and 6 dead. In return we learned they had archers in the 2 tower-like objects on either side of the gate for the base, as well as several ninjutsu specialists on the walls and very powerful barrier seal protecting the gate. Thankfully, the next day reinforcements arrived, bringing fresh troops, supplies and Orochimaru-sama, hey, show even mental respect to the guy who can end your life with a but-a-thought man. I couldn't help but stare at the man who would become a monster as he strode up to the command tent that had been set up with many of the high-ranking shinobi attending, one of which was my brother who cheerfully greeted the snake Sannin who returned his greeting politely. On the one hand, I was terrified, what if I somehow got his interest? Some of Orochimaru-sama's experiments were truly monstrous, but on the other hand, he would be saving a lot of lives with his power in this coming battle. So, what does it look like with the base? Orochimaru-sama questioned as I managed to get close enough to overhear their conversation. Rough, archers in the towers aren't so bad, but they got some kind of chakra draining seal protecting them, any ninjutsu we send at them gets drained and explosive seals refuse to activate, Goryo Taicho explained with a heavy sigh. The gate itself is protected by some kind of powerful barrier seal or ninjutsu, and we can't send a breaker at it because they have ninjutsu specialists on the walls. That is troubling, Orochimaru-sama frowned as he stared at the map. Suddenly, I was struck by just how normal he looked in a standard jonin's uniform, and without that stupid but foul thing. I wonder what your sister has to suggest, Sakaki-san. I let out an involuntary beep at being outed. It wasn't like nobody couldn't hear the conversation. There were no silencing seals set up and one of the tent walls were missing to allow people to filter out. Sorry. Orochimaru-sama, I said nervously as I stepped out from behind the tent wall, my face beat red. Quite alright, Yuriko-chan was it, the snake Sannin questioned kindly. Damn, I never even knew he could do that. All the same I nodded in response to his question. Tell me, with what you know of our collected abilities, how would you suggest we attack the base? Goryo Taicho looked at Orochimaru-sama like he was crazy. He was, just not the kind of crazy he was thinking of, while my brother and a couple of the jonin repressed a chuckle. I racked my brain for an answer as I thought about the abilities that I knew we had. One thought was of my brother's Kashinto, but he would have suggested it already if he thought it would do something. Suddenly my brain jolted. You summon large snakes, right? I questioned the snake Sannin, who smiled and nodded in response, gesturing for me to go on. Well, the biggest problem is that this bridge is the only way across for miles, and those other points are days away and already under siege, and since this way is heavily defended, why not make our own way across away from them? Oh. And how would you suggest that? Orochimaru-sama began before he paused, his brow furrowing in thought. Wait, you suggest using my summons as an improvised bridge to get across the gorge? I nodded in response. Not right beside the base of course, and not all of us. Make it look like we're going to be just simply holding the line here, and send a large enough group a few hours away before crossing over a night, I concluded. That, if your summons can do that, it could work, Goryo Taicho said, his eyes wide at the realization. Children often think outside of the boxes we adults trap ourselves in, the snake summoner agreed with a smile. And yes, my summons are capable of such a task. As for the attack, I would like to request her to be a part of it. I blinked. Goryo Taicho blinked. Sakaki and I-san blinked. Orochimaru-sama grinned. Oh, wonderful. A plan of attack was brought together in short order now that they had a path across the gorge and a team assembled. It was Orochimaru-sama, Sakaki and I-san, my sensei, Saya Taicho, and 24 other elite jonins, of whom I was nearly certain the original Inoshikacho combo was amongst. I felt really out of place amongst them. Ah, Orochimaru-sama. I called out to the man who was walking just ahead of me. He turned to me and smiled, gesturing for me to walk beside him. If I may ask, why did you request for me to come with you in the attack? I'm just a genin. The snake Sannin smiled down at me indulgently. Funny how tall someone can seem when you're only a meager 4 feet 1 inch. I was rather proud about that extra inch I gained. Simple, you have great potential, like your brother, he answered, gesturing to my brother who was trading barbs with a Hyuga. Is that Hizashi, ahead of us? And I believe this would be a great opportunity for you to gain valuable experience. Uh-oh, does that mean he was going to try and kidnap me a couple of years down the road to put the curse seal on me? Dear Kami, I hope not. I see, thank you for the opportunity, Orochimaru-sama, I replied, bowing slightly to him, earning a chuckle of amusement from the snake summoner. I look forward to seeing what you are capable of, Yuriko-chan, he told me in response before turning away as one of the jonin called out to him. Suppressing a shiver, I broke away from the snake Sannin and joined my brother, drawing strength from his presence. It was rather easy, getting across the gorge. Hell, our sensors didn't even detect any scouts on the other side of the gorge as we ran across the back of one of Orochimaru-sama's snake summon. As we began our rapid approach to the base, each of us were suppressing our chakra as much as we could as we ran. The only ones actively using any chakra at all were myself, Sakaki and I-san, and the 2 Hyuga with us, our Dojutsu on the lookout for any sign of ambush or awareness of our presence. We came to a stop on top of a cliff overlooking the base as we made our final preparations. While May of US would have Levetto just rain ninjutsu down upon them, we wanted to capture the base in relatively good condition so that we can use it as a base of operations for our incursions into Kumo's territory. Once we all gave a sign of our readiness, Orochimaru-sama gave the signal to attack. Our primary objective was to disable the archers and get the gates open. I ran in beside Saya Taicho and another elite jonin named Izumi Sato, heading for our target, the closest archer tower. Of course our approach was spotted as the watchmen began shouting their alerts and raising the alarm, but by the time they were scrambling for the walls on their side of the bridge, it was too late. We had scaled the walls and were amongst them. I spotted Sakaki and I-san teleport himself onto the far side of the base right in the middle of the panicking archers, quickly dispatching them with a kunai. His face expressionless as he went about his job. I was the first to enter our archer's nest. The eyes of the archer in front of me were wide as I vaulted in, shoving my kodachi into his throat as I activated the fire release, chakra flow, injecting the flames directly into his neck. The rest of them fell quickly to Saya Taicho and Sato Senpai before I sent the signal for our allies to begin their approach, by lighting the tower on fire. Jumping away from the tower, I spotted Orochimaru-sama locked in combat with half a dozen of what seemed to be elite jonin, and handling the men with ease as he systematically ripped them apart with a flurry of kenjutsu techniques. You have copied 8-stroke beheading. I blinked in response before using that very skill I copied from Orochimaru-sama on a panicking Mizu Chunin who quickly fell under my attacks. When I looked up again, I spotted Orochimaru-sama grinning widely at me as he spat a glob of what at an enemy, blinding them. Ah, wonder if he's made I managed to copy one of his techniques. Please don't let it have garnered more interest in me. Intermediate Kenjutsu has maxed out. You may evolve Intermediate Kenjutsu to Advanced Kenjutsu, accept? Y/N warning, once you have selected an Advanced Kenjutsu you are locked into that path of swordsmanship. Blinking, I quickly hit the no button. I wanted to learn Uchiha sword style, damn it. Not some basic run-of-the-mill Kenjutsu where I just swung my sword around. I could feel a grin slip onto my face as I continued to fight, managing to hold my own in the battle where elite jonin were everywhere. Honestly, I was keeping myself busy by taking out the small fries for the jonin on my side. A shout brought my attention away from the snake Sannin and to my new opponent, a rather large-chested red-haired, dark-skinned woman wearing a brief outfit consisting of an open short sleeveless red jacket that showed off the wrappings around her chest and a pair of short as she charged at me. Observe, I murmured as I dodged her opening kick as she leapt into the air. Name, Nana Ijichi level, 32 EXP, 8421/12, 500 age, 27 gender, female title, jonin, plus 50% to all reputation games, stats HP, 800 CP, 5050 STR, 28 INT, 75 DX, 60 VIT, 25 WS, 66 LUK -19. Perks Water Ninjutsu Specialist, plus 25% effectiveness with Water Release Ninjutsu Lightning Kick Taijutsu Specialist, plus 25% effectiveness with the Lightning Kick Taijutsu Style Lightning Nature Manipulation Specialist, plus 25% effectiveness when manipulating the lightning natured element. A jonin, wonderful. I leapt back to make some distance with us as I made one-handed seals for the chakra scalpel. Turns out once you hit level 50 with a jutsu you can do the seal one-handed with a 10% chance of failure, and it really wasn't much of a surprise I hit 50 for it during the skirmish a couple of days ago considering how constantly I've been using it since I acquired it. The bonus from Medic Meme certainly helped with that, huh? I just realized, am I encountering all these strong guys because of that very same perk? Questions for later. Now is the time to avoid the water dragon. Unable to copy, water release. Water dragon bullet, requires, water nature manipulation, level 40. Not now. I cancelled, fire release chakra flow, and started up, chakra flow, neutral chakra, in its place. If she was a water natured ninjutsu user, my flaming blade would be useless in this situation. Damn it, that sucks. I love my flaming blade. Throwing myself into a roll, I managed to get myself out of the way of another kick before lashing my hand out towards her thigh. The kunoichi sang as she danced out of my reach. I've seen what that nasty little hand of yours does to people. I won't let you harm my beauty with such a dirty technique. Growling, I charged her, going on the offensive and hoping to push her back, only for her to evade each one of my strikes with ease. Even when using the predictive abilities of my Sharingan, Stage 3, I was unable to do more than a bare graze with my Kodachi, and she paid far more attention to the hand-using, chakra scalpel, than my sword. Damn it, this is why the flaming sword works. People always pay attention to fire, but Nash had to be a water ninjutsu specialist. The air suddenly left my lungs as my admittedly small lunch came flying out of my mouth. I suddenly realized her leg was buried in my gut as sparks of electricity arced off of her. Oh, so that's what the lightning nature manipulation specialist is for, and why it's called lightning kick. My back impacted against the outer wall of the base as I coughed, trying to pull air into my lungs once again. HP 476. Oh sweet merciful Camus, I almost lost half my health with that attack. I quickly ran through the seals of mystical palm, and struggled to my feet as I healed what I could. A sking sound made me cut my efforts short and throw myself out of the way shortly before a loud cracking sound was heard behind me. This is why I don't like you, Ryanen. You always try and heal up the damage that I do to you, the kunoichi shouted in a pouting voice as she pulled her leg from where it was buried in the wall. It's very rude, I tell you. HP 646. I'll show you rude, bitch, I panted as my eyes darted about for my Kodachi. It had fell from my hand during my kick-induced flight lesson. Since I couldn't see it at this moment, I instead formed the seals for the chakra scalpel. and formed it in both hands before taking the Uchiha Interceptor Fist opening stance. Growling, the woman scowled at me. Now that I was aware of it, I could see her chakra gathering in her legs, preparing for another strike. It was obvious how superior she felt compared to me, a 7-year-old genin, so of course she wasn't going to take this seriously as she charged directly, using the exact same move that got me the first time. It wasn't so this time as I spun out of the way, slapping my left hand into her abdomen, and pulsing the scalpel into her. Internal bleed was far more dangerous than external after all. Nana screamed in pain as she collapsed from her feet, clutching the side I stuck with the scalpel as she glared hatefully at me. "You little fucking cunt," she spat out hatefully as she dragged herself to her feet, throwing a brace of shuriken to keep me back and preventing me from taking advantage of it, throwing my own brace at her to get her moving, and speeding up the process of her internal bleed. I checked her status again. Name, Nana Ijichi level, 32 EXP, 8421/12, 500 status, internal bleeding, heavy, 75 HP/second. Alright, that was better than nothing. My eyes flickered to my shuriken, the same glow as my chakra scalpel had enveloped them when I had thrown them, but I didn't have time to think about it any further as Nana formed a new set of seals. I knew my Sharingan eyes were spinning as they recorded each hand sign, my own moving up to mimic her almost instinctively. Remembering Kakashi's trick against Zabuza, I began to employ it against Nana, using Sharingan, Genjutsu, to make see a small illusion of her over my shoulder forming the same seals. "Wait. What are you doing?" she whispered in confusion, her eyes widening as she saw the child before her mimic her perfectly. "Looking into your future," I replied as I stared unblinkingly at her. Thank God most Uchihas had a special genetic condition that kept our eyes moist. "And I see your death. You have copied, water release, shooting water spear." So distracted by the genjutsu she never even notices that she showed me the remaining seals for the ninjutsu. Water release, shooting water spear. I shouted the name of her jutsu before she could realize I was tricking her as I blasted some of the nearby water at her in the shape of a spear. CP, 1,376. Damn, that took a lot out of me. Does it cost more since my natural affinity is fire? Gah! Nana screamed in pain as her own jutsu hit her in the face, sending her toppling back. "You little cunt," she screeched angrily as she quickly recovered her footing, a deep cut on the side of her face, as well as her own rage, marring her features. "You dare cut perfection. I will kill you for that." She vanished with a sharp cracking sound as the ground under her crumpled from the force of her acceleration. My eyes widened as I barely managed to trace her path in time to bring my left arm up to block the devastating kick she threw at me. A loud crunching noise filled the air as her kick landed. I couldn't repress my scream of pain as the humorous bone broke from the attack. Even with my chakra gathered and the small leap to the side, I managed to get off, reducing the impact of the blow. HP, 121. Which, considering if I didn't do all that, I wouldn't have survived, is quite the feat, I must say. Letting my arm dangle uselessly, I groaned as I slowly got to my feet. Nana laughed cruelly in response. "Ah, is the poor little baby hurt?" she questioned mockingly. "Do you want me to kiss it better?" I mustered up the strongest glare I could manage in response, my mind too clouded with pain to try and neuter a Sharingan, Genjutsu, at the moment. I found my Kodachi. It was sitting right beside me, the point of it buried in the ground. But I didn't have time to pull it out, so instead I again formed the seals for the chakra scalpel, one-handed, and took up a weak stance against her, getting derisive laughter from her in response. "Oh, I am going to enjoy parading your head around for all to see," she screamed angrily as she charged at me, not even bothering with whatever technique it was that allowed her to make her blindingly fast strikes, toying with me as she slowly whittled my HP away. HP, 92. Damn it, my brother was busy fighting, I can't continue to rely on him. I swiped weakly at her with the chakra scalpel, the kunoichi dodging it with a snort before slamming the palm of her hand into my chest. HP, 59. Damn it, I don't want to die, I want to keep on living, I want to make a difference for the better in this crapsack world. I managed to keep myself from falling by grabbing the hilt of my Kodachi. I want to live to try and prevent the massacre. My grip around the Kodachi tightened as it began to glow slightly. Nana laughed as she punched my face with a sharp crack sounding off the walls in response. HP, 23. Dying? Fuck that shit. You have created a new technique. Chakra Flow, Chakra Scalpel. Chakra Flow, Chakra Scalpel, Level 1, 0%, internal damage on contact, bleeding, and organ damage. Status effect applied, severity scales with level, selection of what organic target cut. I'm going to kill this bitch, and live, to give Naruto a friend. I will live. I shouted loudly, causing Nana to flinch back in surprise. It gave me a moment was all I needed as my empowered Kodachi was ripped from the ground. The now supernaturally sharp blade came whipped at Nana with all the strength I could muster at that moment. The kunoichi cried out in pain as my sword managed to cut across her chest lightly, but I knew differently. Chakra flow, chakra scalpel, allowed me to cut deeper with even the lightest of contact. So I shredded the fucking bitch's lungs. Blood sprayed from her mouth as disbelief filled her eyes at what just happened. Name, Nana Ijichi level, 32 EXP, 8421/12, 500 status, internal bleeding, severe, 100 HP/second, organ damage, both lungs, death in 30 seconds unless treated. The woman collapsed to the ground, trying to draw in breath as she choked on blood and lack of oxygen. I stood over her, glowing sword in hand as I looked down at her contemplatively. I'm better than you, I said finally as I raised my sword. I won't let you suffer at the very least. With those words I brought the sword down and cleaved her head from her body, ending her life. You have defeated Nana Ijichi. Plus 16,875 EXP and 12,000 Ryo, bounty, gain, women's crimson chakra jacket, 40, superior quality kunai, and high quality kunoichi sandals, looted and stored in inventory. You have gained a level. You have gained a level. Chakra flow, chakra scalpel, has gained a level. Chakra flow, chakra scalpel, has gained a level. My deed done, I fell back as exhaustion swept over me, distant sounding shout reaching my ears before a comforting warmth enveloped me. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.